the Witch Weekly editorial, where we go beneath the surface of the wondrous world of Harry Potter and try to get underneath the headlines, the assumptions, and the parts of the story people think they already know.
I'm Rita,
And I'm Betty.
and we're so thrilled to have you join our weekly broadcast.
And today we're going to do a look-see into Albus, Percival, Wulfric, Brian, Dumbledore. It's going to be a little bit of a different structure, I think, than we did with the main trio, because there's a lot more to talk about with Albus that I think, once you peel back the layers of the onion, I think it kind of shapes how we view the story and even just how we see Dumbledore's character over time.
Yeah, and it changes a lot as you learn more about the character and the story evolves, and the amount of depth in his character is fully realized as things go, as the story develops through the 7 books, and then we get a bunch of, kind of prologue stuff as well, through other movies, like other canon movies, not
The Cursed Child.
Not The Cursed Child, the other stuff.
Oh,
And then,
yeah.
Rita's book as well.
Yeah, you really wrote a scathing tell-all there.
Expose.
Well, that's what you do best, I suppose. But I mean, I think we have to think about Dumbledore as sort of like the man, the myth, the legend, right? There's so many different parts to him that when you first meet Dumbledore as the reader, you're like, oh, he's like this like quirky old guy. He's clearly like powerful because people are leaving the decisions of what to do with baby Harry to him, and like McGonagall is looking to him for guidance and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so you can tell he's got power, but it's not like in a very, it doesn't come off
like a soft
aggressive.
power.
It's almost, it's very kind of disarming in a lot of ways, because he's described very, like you can tell that he's a bit eccentric potentially, because he's described wearing buckled boots and like drinking
High heels.
not drinking
The sherbet lemons.
pulling 2 toffees together, like
The
apart,
sherbet
that
lemon?
are stuck together. And
So-
so it's just a lot of like silliness that's embedded in that first description. So it's like kind of hard to tell how seriously to take him, but at the same time you're almost forced to take him seriously, because to your point, like these people, whether that's McGonagall or
Hagrid.
not Hagrid, but he gives off this air of like knowing things,
Yeah.
basically.
But on the sherbet lemons thing, he basically says, "Oh, they're like a Muggle treat that I'm rather fond of." And I can't remember where this was, but this was like back in the old days. I don't know if it was like MuggleNet or like Tumblr or somewhere along those lines. I read this thing and it's kind of stuck with me for some reason. If someone had this like fan theory or like headcanon that like Lily was the one who introduced Albus to sherbet lemons because they're like a Muggle sweet, because where else really would he pick up on some of these things?
Yeah.
I mean, it's Dumbledore, so he could, but she was the one who introduced him to these sweets, and so when he found out that she was dead, like that, like it's like a
interesting.
like his own internal grief, or like like the thing that they were trying to do with Francis in the Half-Blood Prince Slughorn's pet goldfish, or whatever the heck that was supposed to be. But this feels more along those lines, so that just popped in my head right now while we were
Yeah, that's
talking.
interesting.
The other thing too is like we're gonna talk a lot about like trust and stuff when it comes to Dumbledore and like his acceptance of people, but like one of the first things we get is, should you be trusting Hagrid with something this important?
Yeah.
And Dumbledore basically says, I would trust him with my life, which it goes one of two ways, right? Like one, like he's willing to give untraditional people the benefit of the doubt, but also that like maybe you have to think about how Dumbledore views certain situations, and like, should you have complete faith in this or should you not? And like everyone just kind of is like, if Dumbledore says it, that's the final word kind of thing. We see that with Snape time and time again too. So
Yeah, and again, that goes back to like the power that he kind of showcases, or that's embedded in his character. And I think you see that throughout, right? Like I think it's it's his power, but then his disarming nature is kind of how Dumbledore is basically defined throughout the books, and he is able to portray that power while still, kind of showcasing that there are other forms of magic or other ways to bring people along, and disarm certain situations when you don't need to be overly aggressive and like show off your power.
Yeah. Honestly, he's very sassy and I love it. Like he's very whimsical and very, yeah, I think you just mentioned like he's very funny and very much so. Or just quirky, right? He says like, "Oh, let me draw you up a chair." And then he like literally draws up a spare chair, right? Versus when McGonagall makes a new chair, it's like hard backed and like stiff. Or like in the Ministry at the hearing, he conjures up a very like squashy old armchair, and it just sounds like why wouldn't I make a squashy armchair? I don't want to sit in an uncomfy chair. Like I have free will here. But like you wouldn't think that someone this important, powerful, head supreme mugwump would be this quirky. Or like in book 6 when he goes to pick up Harry, like just the sass,
the bottom
master.
I mean the glasses clinking against their heads.
He's like they start off polite and then they just keep getting more and more aggressive, and I have a hard time believing that Dumbledore is not 100% aware of what he's doing there. He's just having a grand old time just messing with the Dursleys.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
Even when like he confronts Rita in the 4th book about that article that she's written.
Enchantingly
like,
nasty.
Yeah, he's like, how did you find it? And just smiles and says, what he thinks. So it's kind of interesting, like to see like the different sides of him for sure.
Yeah, and it's hard. Of course, Harry is going to be a sass master when his mentor Dumbledore is the ultimate sass master.
Yeah, it's true.
Or just like random people catching strays, like Aberforth randomly caught a stray when he was trying to make...
Doesn't even know how to read.
Yeah, like, okay, well, what's with the drive-by, man? You guys are supposed to be getting along now.
Are they, though? Yeah.
Well, if not a close friendship, at least a cordial one.
That's true.
He goes to the Hog's Head to drink with him all the time, apparently.
That's true, because he doesn't have any other drinking buddies.
Yeah, he doesn't. Like, nobody else wants to... That's why he tries so hard with the Dursleys. But, like, again, you just expect with Dumbledore that, like, there's going to be this innate, like, whimsy or, like, fun or silliness. And I think that just... I love it from, like, a world building and character perspective. But also just, like, you never know what you're going to get, right? Like, because there's always, like, there's always something important hidden in the waffle. Right? And like just his very first speech is just like, what do these 4 words have to do with anything, and why are they why are we using them now? Like none of it you're not supposed to know what to do with it. And obviously there's a lot of like fan theories about why and what those nitwit, oddment, blubber, tweak are supposed to mean or what and whatnot. So but he's just meant to be like strange.
Yeah, and I think that just, again, like, I think they're working to define what the world is going to look like, in the early books. So, but I think that's a character trait that continues. And then I think, like, one of the things that I think we have to talk a bit about is, like obviously his main job when we meet him is headmaster. So, like, how does he show up as a headmaster within all of within the entire
if you're
series,
Harry,
right?
Arguably a good headmaster. If you're any of the other 1,000 students,
not good,
not great.
Like your
collateral damage. You're for the greater good.
But you're focused on this one kid supposedly, and then it's arguable if he's always looking in Harry's best interest either.
We'll talk about that.
But I think like even as a headmaster, like, dude, this school is dangerous. Like, why are there snakes running around?
Why are there not one spare wand? Who is doing your inventory check?
How come you don't have
one?
You don't have like a school store?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like poor Ron.
Like Ollivander doesn't have a satellite office?
Like I don't understand.
What if it was an owl year? Yeah,
maybe you just need to be better at protecting your wand.
It's your only weapon.
Yeah, like that's insane.
It's the only tool you have in your arsenal.
Yeah, and then there's like, even in the first one, obviously he knows what's going on. So how is he letting this dragon roam around? Or even like you know Quirrell is up to something, but you're basically just saying, yeah, just keep an eye on him. No big deal. He might kill a few people. What?
Probably not.
Also, like,
Or like
Draco.
he was
Draco.
around.
He was around when Myrtle died, and like now that the chamber is open again, you know how dangerous this place is, or like this, how dangerous it must be when the chamber is open. Someone died last time. 4 people get petrified, and you don't.
One is a ghost. One is a cat. So only like 2.
You don't, but you still don't do anything. Like,
true.
What?
Well, in his defense, he gets shunted away.
Not to mention all the questionable hiring decisions he made.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
You're letting a ghost teach?
I don't know how Binns hasn't been canned.
Like,
he doesn't teach anything.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, here's the thing. In theory, I don't have a problem with a ghost professor. In practice, he's not a good professor.
But that can be said about so many of them.
He should be on a pip.
Like,
Snape he knows the material, but he's
a bad
teacher.
He's bitter. He's bitter for 13 years, so he doesn't teach anybody.
No, but like he's taking out his bitterness on like the wrong thing.
I'm so confused. And then
but like you could have been so efficient if you like Harry learns so much from Snape's notes.
Yeah.
Right? You're there, you know you had so much anyways.
Anyway,
he should be on tip too.
Questionable choices. Like you're basically
and those are the good teachers that we don't replace every year.
And Trelawney, right? Like you're basically just giving these people teaching positions, quote unquote.
You don't even like the subject.
Because
for the greater good.
For the greater good. Because you cannot let them wander off into the world. Like Snape I can at least understand.
Yeah, but imagine if Trelawney pulled a Bertha Jorkins.
In what sense?
In the sense of like she like stumbled upon someone from the Death Eaters, and then he would have.
Surely there are better ways to protect her without forcing her terrible teaching on, students. 13 years of students. 16 years of students.
Yeah, it's fair. To be fair, Ferenz also. Maybe that's why Hermione doesn't like horses. He is also like not that concerned about like how much they're learning. He's like kind of wishy-washy and vague in how he teaches. The 2 most egregious examples are Lockhart and Trelawney.
Yeah.
Right? Those are like the 2 worst hires because Lockhart, I'm like, again, you have so many friends. You know so many people. Why are you hiring this guy?
But I think it's just, again, like, I don't know. Maybe there's just, for the greater good. There's a bigger story here, right? But you don't know.
Tell me what I learned from Lockhart other than the fact that his favorite color is lilac and his dream is to rid the world of evil and start his own brand of hair care products. That's all I know about him. I didn't learn anything else. Even Expelliarmus, I learned it from Snape.
I know. Anyway.
All he did was throw a snake 20 feet into the air, and then it fell, and then it got mad, and then Harry had to calm it down, and then Harry got ostracized.
Yeah, maybe it's just, point is to
keep an open mind.
Keep an open mind, but just teach the students, your teachers can suck, but you can still be great somehow.
Or, no, and the ultimate worst is obviously Umbridge.
Yeah, but he doesn't
appoint her, but the only reason she gets appointed is because he couldn't find anyone else for the job.
At this point, no, I think that's not accurate. I think I think that's like the ministry line. I think they say that. I think that's what
educational decree number 22
I understand, but I think that's like the ministry just intervening. Like I think they're basically saying that you couldn't find someone that we deemed suitable. So maybe he did find people and they were just rejecting it. You know what I mean?
Okay, but I guess they're not like a puppet. Whoever he had found was not like a puppet in their pocket.
What do you mean? No, I'm saying that Dumbledore found people.
Yeah,
but then the ministry was saying, you can't.
Person X or
they're basically saying they're not qualified.
Yeah, because they were not like a ministry puppet.
Exactly. Yeah. So that, he had already made up his mind that he didn't want to implement a Dumbledore appointee because at this point
we do that in the real world. Why wouldn't we do that in the wizarding world?
He wants a minion, a spy there, basically, right? So I think that's
we do that in the real world. Why wouldn't we? Life imitates art.
Yeah, so I think that's where that's coming from.
Still, bad hire. Really, really bad hire. Like, also some of his staff are just, like, Umbridge is straight up committing...
Torturing
yeah,
people.
she's, like, not, I was gonna say waterboarding, but, like, she's straight up torturing people.
Yeah.
And, like, he doesn't know about it, fine. But, I mean, come on.
Does he not know that?
I don't think he knows about it.
Yeah, I think if he knew, he would have stopped.
Yeah,
because
that's a red
Marietta
line.
thing,
Yeah,
the margarita thing.
That is a red line for him. Are we just gonna keep calling her Margarita now, I guess?
It's a better name.
It is a better name. But, like, I will say that, like, you maybe not Umbridge, but the other quote unquote bad hires, you could conceivably have a...
Sorry, but Hagrid is also a bad hire.
Okay, you sound like a Ravenclaw right now. Well, or no, we think he's a bit... Yeah, that's what Luna said.
We think he's a bit of a joke in Ravenclaw.
Yeah. He's a great teacher. Even Hermione is like...
He's not a good
teacher. He's really not a good teacher. He teaches them about flobberworms for 10 months out of the year.
Sorry, what?
But they do the best if you leave them alone. So
what are you
doing?
teaching? Just a free period? And then the other time you're learning about these kind of like weird creatures that you've invented? Like, that's random.
Illegal also.
Yeah. Well, it's technically not illegal. It's frowned upon.
It's illegal.
It's not illegal.
It's a ban.
It's not banned. In the article, it says the breeding of two creatures is closely monitored by the ministry.
Oh, you're right. We do have a fire-breathing chicken at some point.
It's not illegal.
Well,
it's just like you're not supposed to do that unless it's under controlled environment, which is
that
clearly is not.
Antidotes are antidon'ts unless administered by a ministry healer.
Yeah, exactly.
Or whatever, qualified healer. Anyways, even Lupin, okay, we know he's a good teacher, but the world would argue that's a bad hire because of the werewolf thing.
Yeah, but to me, like, that thing is like pretty under control from the sounds of it.
I'm saying Lupin is a good teacher, but like if you are...
I think there are many other ones that I would...
I know, but it would just...
Maybe.
But that's what Rita says in her article, or that's what you say in your article about, like, questionable hiring practices, including half-giants and werewolves or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
So, like, it's not just us saying that.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Right.
Anyways, like I said, like, I think he's... Like, obviously, there's lots of good things about him as a headmaster, you know, letting someone like Lupin come to school, like, making sure that Muggleborns get all their fair fair opportunities and things like that. So, obviously, great headmaster.
Yeah. He pretty much knows everything that's going on within Hogwarts, and I think a lot of it is him
just giving
you the tools to succeed, but he's not going to fight your battles for you.
Yeah, and I think he is obviously a firm believer in, like, giving you infrastructure and, like, an opportunity to your point to succeed, but it's never going to be... He's not
handed to you.
He is... Yes, and I don't think he believes in that much structure, to be honest. Like, I think in general, the wizarding world doesn't believe in structure, but I think him specifically, like, I think he keeps going back and saying, like, I think he says there are so much more that you can learn about magic that's beyond just what you learn from books and, like, whatever. Mm-hmm. Which is why I think he likes to engineer a little bit or a lot of chaos in the school to see how the students will fare.
Yeah, I think and I think it's like sink or swim, right? Like, you have to jump into the deep end at a certain point, and it's either going to be out in the real world where, I mean, I think Harry says this of, like, you don't get do-overs in the real world.
Yeah.
If you want to, like, oh God, what's the line? I'm blanking on it. Oh yeah, if we're going to be attacked, it's not going to be risk-free.
I think that's Ron who says that. No?
Is that Ron?
Maybe, I don't know.
No. I think it's Harry, because it's when Umbridge is saying you'll be learning defense against the dark arts in a controlled risk-free environment. And he's like, well, this doesn't make any sense. So even Harry understands that, like, if you're not going to build those tools or skills in a controlled, monitored, safe environment, then you're going to be put in this real world where you don't have the capabilities to succeed as an adult. Yeah. And for Harry's case specifically, that's very important. And we can talk about that in a little bit as well. But he really does give you, he knows what's going on, and he's like, I'm not going to step in, but I'm going to monitor the situation closely, essentially, and give you the tools you need to win.
Agreed.
That's what makes him a good teacher, though.
Yeah, exactly. I agree
Right?
with
Like,
that.
a good teacher is not someone who spoon feeds you the answer. The good teacher is the one who shows you how to fix the problem, and then
Right.
has the faith in you that you will figure it out.
Yeah, exactly.
It's harsh when you're dealing with it, especially on the scale that Harry has to deal with.
Right.
But it's still like, if you don't develop those skills, you'll never learn them.
Yeah, exactly. And then the other part of like Dumbledore's personality, I think, is like, and we'll talk about Grindelwald in a little bit, but I also think there's tons of parallels to how, like, to Voldemort himself, because they're both obviously kind of like generational talents, like, you know, kind of very smart individuals, very capable. Even Dumbledore, like, when he comes to Hogwarts, he's able to make a name for himself immediately. Like, obviously, no one is as quote unquote great as Dumbledore, because he's obviously a genius, like making friends with like noted historians, Flamel, like in his first year. Like, I'm not saying Voldemort was that big of a talent, or at least maybe it was underplayed a little because he was more cautious.
But they both go beyond quote unquote normal magic.
Yeah, and they're both obviously very, very
Different ways.
talented, and they're both sort of like painted as kind of like unique or lonely characters. Like, they are so like above everybody else. Like, it's almost like they don't have another equal. And they're both like painted as very charismatic people when they're younger. Like, I think Dumbledore continues that, and like maybe to a certain extent Voldemort too, because he is able to like gather a lot of followers, and and so they both have this like weird obsession with like doing better and learning the most of magic. And
the other, just while you were speaking, I think it's interesting that you mentioned that, like, sort of not loners, but I guess kind of loners, because like obviously he's very good friends with Elphias Doge. And he has other friends at school as well, but like he's apart, but also not apart the same way that Voldemort does.
I think he has followers similar to Voldemort.
But that's my point. He I think has a lot of people around him that he wouldn't consider to be close friends or whatnot. But different to Voldemort, he does have people that he considers close, even if they don't. It's same as Voldemort, of like, no one will fully know the full plan except for Dumbledore, right? No one knows 100% of the story.
They're the only ones who can see multiple moves ahead.
So right, that's like they don't like Elphias is very close with Dumbledore, but doesn't know the full background of his family life and stuff like that.
And
right?
It's the same like in
same
like
with
present
Voldemort.
day,
Exactly.
right? Like, he will tell like parts of the story to Snape and like parts of the story to Harry, but like no one actually knows the full picture
except for him.
Key man for him until the very end, when you're at King's Cross, when Harry's like, you always knew.
We're gonna get into King's
Cross. But like Harry says like, oh, you always knew how this was gonna end, or like you always knew. Like, you could be implying that he could see multiple moves ahead, but I think so. I think those are like a lot of similarities between how those two characters are written, but obviously like the big difference is the fact that like Dumbledore is able to recognize his own weaknesses and course correct or pivot, whereas Voldemort
doubles down,
right? Like, I think it's like Dumbledore can recognize that he is a risky person, quote unquote, when he's thrust in power, and he recognizes that he's not someone to be trusted with that kind of power, whereas like Voldemort doesn't view it that way.
Right. Yeah, and I think that character foil exists very meaningfully, because it's similar to like how Harry and Draco or Harry and Dudley are like meant to serve as each other's sort of
counterbalance.
Yeah, like to counterweight each other, because yes, Dumbledore, we see it obviously when he's younger, like could and starts to go down a very different pathway, and he doesn't. I don't think he means it to. We can talk about this later, but there is this element of redemption or course correction or understanding of that, like, if things were different, the world today would be very, very different. And he could have easily become worse than
Yeah.
Voldemort in some ways because he understands things better and he's more talented magically. But because he understands some of these things and some of these tragedies that happen, I
Right.
think that really gives him like a very sharp wake up call, and then he kind of is like, whoa, this is not a good thing.
Okay.
So I think he's a little scared that he might like revert back into some of
Yeah,
these
yeah,
things.
exactly. And I think that kind of helps to define some of the flaws in his character or how it's written. There's obviously a ton, but that's definitely one of them where he recognizes it. Yeah.
And then obviously the real crux that we have to get back to is the Harry of it all. Because I think that is really what sets so much of this story in motion.
Right.
And I guess the center of the debate there is, you know, I think Snape says it of like, you're raising him like a pig for slaughter.
Yeah.
And so there's this really interesting tension, I guess, between doing things for the greater good and knowing that you have to versus like, is this moral to be
basically
raising this
kind of
kid as like
without knowing the full story, right? Like
Yeah.
you can argue that he knew about the fact that or like he found out that like Harry had a chance to survive at the end of book 4 when the blood thing happens and Voldemort is back. But before that, he doesn't actually know that, and he's basically assuming that Harry he's heard the prophecy, so he's assuming that Harry's gonna have to either live to fight this person and have a chance at defeating Voldemort or potentially die. And it's kind of
messed up.
It is a little messed up because you're basically like putting all this pressure on this kid who you don't know what's gonna his life is gonna look like.
Yeah, and I mean, I think Dumbledore pretty much knows as a Chamber of Secrets that Voldemort has made Horcruxes, and because when the diary comes back, he's like, this is not a memory. That's not
memory,
possible.
It's not a normal diary.
Yeah, so
but even
that's
before the Horcrux, before Chamber, he knows he has to keep Harry alive because he's heard the prophecy, and the prophecy basically outlines that this person is going to be your best chance of defeating Voldemort.
Yeah, but he doesn't have... So he knows that Voldemort's not dead. So he knows that I have to keep this kid alive because I don't know if it's in 5 years or 50 years, but at some point, this kid is the only way we're going to beat him. So I have to keep him alive. But at the same time, he's like... He says this later, but he's like, you were 11, you had just gone through this crazy ordeal. Like, what did it matter, basically, if, like, some nameless and faceless people in some distant future died, if here and now you were a happy, healthy kid. And you had gone through so much in your short life that I just wanted to, like, have you enjoy some, like, modicum of goodness in the world because I knew eventually what you were going to have to deal with. So he also has, like, this weird thing of like, I need to protect this kid for the greater good, but at the same time, like, I've grown to really like care for the boy, so I can't like fully just let things go to the greater good. But at the same time, he knows that he's probably gonna have to die.
Yeah, but even before that, I'm saying that even before that, when he's basically trying to do everything he can to protect him, before he starts to think of Harry as like someone that he has grown to care for, he's really just raising him as a soldier to fight in this war, right? And like, not saying that that's a bad thing because you're basically kind of thinking about the quote unquote greater good and like the survival of the wizarding community against just some person potentially, right? But it is very difficult to square that circle because you as a reader get to know Harry at on a very deep level very quickly.
And I think also, like, Dumbledore doesn't know how or like how it's going to play out, but he knows that Harry is the most important piece on the chessboard. He doesn't know how the match is going to end, but he knows that the only shot of winning against Voldemort is going to be this kid. So we have to do whatever we can to make him grow into the person that is going to want to fight, and give him the tools so that when he walks into that arena, he does it with his head held high, like he says in Half-Blood Prince or whatever. Because otherwise, like, he will succumb to the tyranny of Voldemort. Like, Harry can't be the type of person that will walk away from the fight. Yeah. He has to be the type of person who is going to go into that arena and either win or die.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. There's a lot of questionable things that I think Dumbledore does, and that's, I think, as you get to know the character at a deeper level, you're always contemplating him being sort of like the best of us, and like this perfect character that is always looking for resolution and peace, but then how he gets there is always a little dicey. Like we just talked about how he feels about Harry and how he's being brought up. But also in conjunction with that is how, like, the fact that he leaves Harry with the Dursleys for as long as he does, right? So if you think about, I mean, I think McGonagall says it, or I think it's McGonagall. She immediately knows, like, the Dursleys are the worst, and says that, you know, there's a number of wizarding families who would adopt him, or like, there's not going to be a single person in the wizarding community who's not going to know his name. And Dumbledore argues to keep Harry with the Dursleys. And to a certain extent, you understand that, because obviously you want to give him the best protection, because you don't know if or when Voldemort is coming back. And there's a lot of, like, in hindsight, I feel like, you know, Voldemort's not coming back because he needs someone to perform this Horcrux, whatever magic. Yeah. But at that time, when supposedly Voldemort is gone, you don't know if he's going to be able to come back right away or not. So
you don't know the mechanism behind how.
Yeah, and like you don't know if it's like a 1 day, 1 month, or like, you know, an eventuality that's never going to happen. Yeah. So I think it's different. I understand why he'd want to give Harry the best protection from the bond of blood. But at the same time, sometimes it's like, well, you know, these people are awful. Like,
I think maybe he hopes that Petunia will be better. And again, that's like, he has too much faith in people sometimes.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's
almost like in his character a little.
I think it's like an overcorrection
But, I mean, he believed that Gellert was, like, I don't think it's an overcorrection at all. I think it's just consistent with his personality, right? Like, he's choosing to see the best in everybody, regardless of what the data tells him.
I don't know.
Because he says, I knew in my heart of hearts that I think I knew what Grindelwald was, but I chose to ignore it.
Yeah, but I wonder, like, I don't agree that that's because he wants to see the best in people. I think with Grindelwald, it's, again, comes back to, like, his character flaw of being lonely and, like, feeling...
a peer, an equal.
Yeah, so I think it's more just, like, he's the first person who you can talk to and feel like he's not lonely, I guess. And so to me, that's different than seeing the goodness in people... despite their flaws. So, I don't know.
But, like, the other thing, too, about just going back to the Dursleys, right? I mean, the other thing, too, is you have to remember that at this point, he doesn't know the kid, right? He loves the kid on the strength of loving Lily and James. But when he grows up and comes to Hogwarts, that's when he actually, like, starts liking and caring for Harry. Yeah. As a baby, there's an element of... I am the general of this army, and I need to make strategic decisions that personally might pain me or pain someone else, because he knew that Harry was gonna have 10 very lonely years until he came back into the world. But he's like, I have to kind of like compartmentalize what I feel on a personal level with my role in this bigger world and this bigger fight. Because I am the only one. And again, that's another fault because he only trusts himself with all the information.
Yeah.
So
I think
nobody
Harry
else can
says that.
shoulder the burden. And so he has to be the one who makes all the tough calls and has to live with all the tough calls, even if he's like, I don't want to do this, but if I don't, nobody else can. And yeah, you're right. Harry calls him out in after he's dead in book 7 of like, he asked me to do this and this and this for him, but never trusted me with the full truth ever. And that becomes a real pain point for Harry, and like it kind of ruptures their relationship or his memory of his relationship. He'll recover from it, but it's
Yeah, but that is one of Dumbledore's flaws, right? Like, he like keeps people at a distance, and like he views that as a strength, but I think it ends up becoming one of his weaknesses. Like
like in
whether
book 5.
yeah, when he's like pushing Harry away, or like even the fact that like he's never really able to deal with like the whole grief from Ariana's death and stuff like that. Like I think that's a big issue that he has to reckon with throughout his life.
Yeah, and like the only time it ever comes up really is at the very end in the cave when he takes this potion. And that the first time reading that was just brutal because he's so weakened.
Yeah.
And you never expect to like book 6 is really when you start seeing that Dumbledore is not this infallible always going to be there to guide you person, because you meet him and right away, like, keep in mind he picks him up from number 4 2 weeks after book 5 ends. It's the shortest stay he's ever had, which means that in those 2 weeks he has already found the ring, put it on, gotten cursed, and Snape has contained it to his hand, and he's taken this massive injury. And they've already made the plan between them of, you're gonna kill me. I'm not gonna deal with this suffering here. But so in those 2 weeks, a lot has already happened.
Yeah.
And when we meet him, when he shows up at number 4, you're like, whoa, he's all like, what's going on?
Yeah, because he's already like
He's
so
already
injured.
he's already a little frail, and he points with his wrong hand and like says ouch or whatever, and that's a bit of a wake-up call for you, the reader. But from like a narrative standpoint, like the same reason that the parents have to die, the same reason that Sirius has to die, is the same reason that Dumbledore also has to die before the big fight between Harry and Voldemort, because unless the last and greatest of his protectors, unless he is off the board, Voldemort will never move to an open stage of fighting between Voldemort and Harry. Yeah. So you're never gonna, as long as he's under Dumbledore's umbrella and his protection, Voldemort's too much of a chicken. So he has, from a literary standpoint, Dumbledore has to be off the table, but when it happens and you see
it's still
like
hard.
that pain in the cave and like all this stuff that he's never really processed or talked about, and that's when you as the reader, you're like, whoa, like what's going on? And it's also that thing of Harry just couldn't imagine a young Dumbledore, or like couldn't imagine him sitting on the beach like rubbing sunscreen on his nose or whatever, right? Yeah. There's this, you as the reader also are like, I forgot there's this whole other life that he has led, all these other accomplishments, and obviously that comes with other grief and other things that have happened, but you don't process it until you're in the cave and you're seeing the pain that Albus is going through.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there's obviously tons of things specifically around the summer of Grindelwald that define present day Dumbledore and how he views life, and what are the things that have made him not question certain things, but have formed his opinion on, whether it's
morality,
morality, or like being able to coexist with Muggles and
love,
being able to be more open to Muggleborns, and like some of those are completely 180 to how he was thinking when he was with Grindelwald, and like to a certain extent, like grief/love, which is how Harry finally is able to reconcile that thing, because when Dobby dies, what Harry feels is grief, but he says like Dumbledore would have called it love, and I think that's like an actual parallel to
Between
when
the two names.
Ariana dies. Like I think Dumbledore feels grief, but I think eventually he's able to process that and like change his perspective on that. But I think without having that summer with Grindelwald and like that graveside duel, I think his perspective is like, I think that's what ultimately
Fundamentally changes him.
I think that's what ultimately changes
Yeah.
it. And then he's able to recognize that how he was looking at life and like focusing on ambition is not really as important, and recognizes his fatal flaw of like can't be trusted with power, more what his role is in the wizarding world and like what his legacy needs to be going forward, which is very different than how he would have thought his life was going to go in the first, since he went to Hogwarts, basically.
Yeah, because again, it goes back to similar what we were saying with Voldemort. Like, everyone thought he was going to be the youngest prime minister of magic, right? You could say the same thing about Dumbledore. And then the other thing too about like the grief and love comment that you were making is that Dumbledore has had 100 years ahead of Harry to think about this, essentially. And Harry is this whole thing of like, you don't understand what I'm going through. Like, you've never dealt with something like this. But it's
to be
like
young and feel
15 to feel love's keen sting. But no, that's what Dumbledore says, is that like young men will never know what it is to age, but old men are guilty if you forget what youth feels like, or something like that. Better said than what I just paraphrased. But he understands and knows and has the faith that Harry will eventually come to understand it, and I think he does get that like the grief only feels as bad because the love that was there was so strong. Like I think Grindelwald really does shape his entire character arc. But I was thinking about it. I think there's a bit of a plot hole in this story, because from what I remember, and correct me if I'm wrong. So Albus and Elphias graduate their 7th year, and they're supposed to go on the year-long whatever expedition. Okay, so presume that's June, and then the mom dies, so he doesn't go. Okay, cool, that makes sense. Presumably early July, let's call it.
Okay.
And then Grindelwald shows up, and they have this whirlwind summer romance. And it's only for the summer, because it's met multiple times. It's 2 months, and Aberforth is getting ready to go back to school, which would apply late August. But then Elphias, he goes, but in his obituary that he writes for Albus says, towards the end of my year of travel, which would imply the following summer. Which doesn't make sense. So like I think there's a bit of a plot hole there, because one or Elphias is lying, but that's easily fact checkable of like when Ariana's funeral was.
Oh, you mean
like the year? Because either it's Grindelwald was there for 2 months, which is I always assumed it was 2 months. Like
I think it's like a beginning of summer, end of summer thing. Like
but Elphias says the then customary year-long tour.
Yeah, but I think I don't think that he, like, I assume he just comes back, like, or like that's just like a misprint in like the article. I don't think that
Maybe
like that can't make sense, because
that's what I mean, is that like a year of traveling, it's like it cannot be both.
Like we know for sure they only knew each other for
2 months, for a summer.
Yeah, exactly. So to me, it's more
just a bit of a plot hole.
Yeah.
But hey, I mean, in book 4, there's a major plot hole in the graveyard with the order of the.
That's
in
fixed.
our edition, that's fixed now. But I just mean in our copy, it's.
I don't think. Yeah, I think that's like that. That's a typo. I don't think that's a
typo. That's like a straight up scene that they had to rewrite in the graveyard when James comes second in the older copies. They had to rewrite that scene, and it doesn't really fully make sense in the rewrite. We'll talk about that later. But yeah, I was just thinking about that because I think after Ariana's death is when, Elphias comes back and finds a young man, still 17, who had suffered a life's worth of tragedies. And I think that's what changes the arc of his entire belief system.
Yeah, exactly. No, I agree with that. I think that definitely changes everything. And I don't know, like I still think that I think as defining as that moment is, I think that he's he's still like he still continues to be a flawed person. Like I think even though he's able to recognize that he's can't be trusted with power, he still sort of maintains that power in a certain way, right? Because we talked about it earlier. Like he might not be the minister of magic, but everyone is still coming to him for advice. He's even Fudge is coming to him for advice. He's continues to be the only
He's the
person.
supreme mugwump.
He continues to be like this
Great
person
word.
behind the curtain who's like manipulating all these events to make sure that like you're able to move the community as a whole behind one mission, whether that's, you know, kind of manipulating or guilt tripping Snape into joining the order and saying that like, oh, like, you know, like, yeah, she's dead, but like you can protect her son. And then at the end, like Snape dies not even knowing Harry's gonna survive,
Yeah.
right? Or like there's a chance of survival
Because again,
because
Dumbledore
Harry
doesn't
can't
give him
know.
the whole information.
Exactly, but
because if he knows, then he won't live.
but that is also a form of power, which I think
Yeah, you're withholding information.
not like he enjoys necessarily, but like it's not fully accurate to say, oh, like Dumbledore is like doesn't hold any power, right? Like I think he does that even when he is kind of pushing Harry towards defeating Voldemort. Not that Harry wouldn't do it himself anyways, but at the same time, like there's tons of like lies or half truths or that he tells people, and Harry especially, that like eventually ends up becoming a problem for Harry is because that trust is broken, and he continues to he's never fully able to disassociate from that.
Yeah, but I think Harry also like while it's happening, you're seeing the real like breakdown in the. I mean, yes, one party is dead, but there's a real breakdown in how Harry views Dumbledore, because he's like, you keep asking me to do this, and I never asked you why, and I went on this mission, and I just assumed that it was obvious that I was going to live at the end of it. I thought that's why we were doing this. I didn't realize that the more Horcruxes I killed, the closer I was chipping away at my own life. And like Dumbledore created the situation this way because he knew that I'm the type of person that I would never walk away from the fight. And again, like he's played Dumbledore is the guiding invisible hand across the entire narrative.
Yeah.
And you're not supposed to know it, because if you know it,
then it's
not going to happen, right? But as he's dealing with this betrayal, he's like, I'm not going to stop walking down this path because this is who I am now. And it causes a real fracture, I think, in how Harry views Dumbledore. But I think he also ends up defending him to his own brother, saying that, like, look, it's not always, and again, because Dumbledore has a 100-year head start on this, so he knows how Harry's going to think about it, of like, sometimes you have to think about something that's bigger than you, because like, it's not great, it's not ideal, but if you don't do it, like, somebody has to be the point man,
right?
And like, if you're trying to do something as big and bold and change the world or stop the rise of tyranny, then somebody has to be the tip of the spear. Sometimes you have to think about stuff that's bigger than you, and you have to like fall on the sword, even if it's gonna suck. And like, he knows it's gonna suck, because when they bring his body out at the end of the battle, like, he's like, the worst part of it was hearing everyone's reactions of seeing him lying there, like presumably dead. Because they don't know.
Oh, you mean when Harry
at the Battle of Hogwarts?
Oh, yeah. I see what you're saying.
And like, because Dumbledore has shaped Harry to be this type of person, and his is the kind of invisible hand that guides him and forces him to realize that, yeah, sometimes like the greater good is the important thing, and it's not just about me. And it starts off obviously in a very negative, bad place with how Grindelwald means it. Like for the Muggles' own good and their own domination, or our domination will be for their own good, essentially.
Yeah.
Which is a very like dictatory way to say it.
It's
but
quite different than where he ends up.
Yeah,
for
but
sure.
he uses that same framework in like a mirror of it essentially throughout his life. So I don't know. That's why Dumbledore is such an interesting character, because like he's not like, when we meet him, you're like, yeah, like he's like whatever, like Gandalf the White, right? He's like Dumbledore the White. But then you realize that like, well, no, he's kind of more gray than you expect.
Yeah, I agree with
Dumbledore the Gray.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think basically, I think his evolution is pretty stark throughout the books, because again, he comes off at the beginning as like a very supposed perfect character, but then as you learn more, you kind of recognize that he's not. And I think at King's Cross, when Harry meets Dumbledore, quote unquote, for the final time, I think there's a lot of that duality that you see, and like Harry's finally able to accept the fact that his hero, like Dumbledore will still be his hero, and like I think he finally recognizes that his hero is not perfect, and he's able to find peace in that.
Don't meet your heroes, kid.
Yeah, but he's able to find peace in that, I think, because he recognizes that even if Dumbledore was not perfect, I don't think that he doesn't think that there was any malintent or anything malicious. Even if he felt for a little while a little betrayed by not having all the information at all times, but eventually sees that like, okay, there was a reason for it. And I think, being able to see the full picture, Harry recognizes that how Dumbledore approached it was in fact the right approach.
And because if Harry could not, fundamentally he is not allowed to know all the information, right? Because if he knows there's a chance that he won't die, survive, he will die.
Yeah.
So it's like this weird like catch-22. So Dumbledore inherently has to keep that secret, because he's like, the only way this sacrificial love will work is if you don't know that it can work, essentially. But I do want to talk about this King's Cross scene with you, because I think you and I have different interpretations of this scene. Okay. I have always thought that scene actually happens. That is,
it does actually happen. No, I never said it doesn't happen.
It's all happening inside your head. Why would that mean it's not real? No, what I mean is that the Dumbledore that you see in King's Cross is actually like Dumbledore's like spirit memory, whatever you want to call it, the same way that like when you turn the ring, it's like it actually is James and Lily. It's not like
that's not how it's described though.
I think it's like Dumbledore behind the veil. I think that's what it is. Like
it's not though. Okay. So
I want to get into this is, you know what? We got to, if we're going to get into a heated debate about something, I think we need a segment name for this. And let me hold on. I'm going to brainstorm some stuff for next week, okay? Because I feel like we're going to get into this more often than not. I think it's a real Dumbledore. That is the theory I posit.
It just doesn't make any sense. Because,
so you think it's a fake Dumbledore?
It's not fake. He says it. Just because it's happening in your head doesn't mean it's not real. It's not fake, okay? It's very real, but at the same time, I don't think it's like the actual Dumbledore coming back into some kind of purgatory from beyond the grave.
Why not? Voldemort's there.
But again,
they're all in purgatory together.
It's not. They're not together, because it's only Voldemort and Harry, because they were the ones fighting each other. So now they're both stuck in purgatory.
And Voldemort's stuck. He never leaves.
Right.
So if you never leave,
No.
You don't have to go on.
But no, I think the problem with Voldemort is that he
Soul is
can't
broken.
die. Like, you have to have an intact soul,
Yeah.
or like a reasonably intact soul, in order to pass.
Yeah.
And Dumbledore has always said, don't pity the dead, Harry, pity the living. He was like, it's kind of like thinking like Sirius is ever going to come back as a ghost. No, Dumbledore believes that death is just the next adventure. So he's not going to hang around in purgatory
No,
for
he's not hanging around.
You can't come back.
He's not back. Okay, back.
cannot-
Back would be if he showed up in the
you
forest.
No,
as a ghost.
No,
that's back.
No, you cannot come back from. Once you board the train on King's Cross and go beyond, you
are
cannot
beyond.
come back. It's a one-way trip. Okay. It's only reason Harry gets a choice is because he's being tethered back to life. Other people are not.
I'm not saying Dumbledore comes back to life. What
I never said you said that. I'm saying that he also cannot come back to purgatory. What purgatory is like, you have the, like, that's basically where they ask you want to come back as a ghost. You say yes or no. Once you say no,
that's fine.
You're on the train and you're off. You go, you can't come back. It's a one-way
Okay,
ticket.
but that doesn't make any sense because okay, Lily, James, Sirius are all dead, but the ring is able to bring them sort of back. That's the type of back that Dumbledore is in King's Cross Station. He's not actually back,
But
right?
what's
Because
the mechanism of him coming back? Like, he's
on.
He's
From
not
on.
back. This is
He's not back.
It's Harry. It's Harry's. It's a figment of Harry's consciousness because he already has all of the answers that he's giving himself.
But the reason, okay, I feel like that cheapens it though, because I find that like the King's Cross scene is this like very like nice closing of the relationship and the book between actual Harry and actual Dumbledore, where he's able to like have the closure or like say goodbye or like get all of his anger out and like all these things, right? And like, yes, Harry does have most if not all of the information already, and he's able to like connect those dots, I guess.
He knows all the answers, and I think
The answers were within you all along.
yeah. And I think it's kind of better because it shows that he actually did know Dumbledore really well, because like
Yeah.
I think there's a part in the 7th book where it's Hermione's like, oh, I think you're just mad that he didn't tell you all of this stuff himself. And I think part of that is true, but at the same time, I think the full circle moment is that like at the end in King's Cross, Harry recognizes that he knows everything he needed to know about Dumbledore to begin with.
I mean, I guess, but to me, I think the version of Dumbledore that shows up at King's Cross is the same as like the marauders that show up in the forest from the ring, or like the echo of Sirius in the graveyard, or like, for example, like if someone was just beyond the veil, like I think it's more like that. I don't think it's a figment of his imagination. I think it's an actual.
It's not a figment.
No,
it's not imagining it.
It's a manifestation. Whatever.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think that Dumbledore is a manifestation of Harry's conscious. I don't think he's like his Sherpa guide. That like I could imagine, like, you know how we were talking about with Hermione being Harry's is conscious.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like that. I think it's an actual Dumbledore who has come to either guide him onto the train or like guide him back home, essentially. So I think it's a real Dumbledore.
I disagree. That can't be a real Dumbledore because Dumbledore.
He's not back. Anyways, I don't think we're gonna get a resolution to this debate here. But I just wanted to discuss that because I feel like it could go either way. My way.
I don't think so.
Okay, that's fine. But yeah, I just think we could talk about Dumbledore for 900 pages. There's just so much there.
Yeah. I don't know. I think there's many interpretations to Dumbledore, right? Like, is he a hero because he continues to fight for the greater good? Is he this like puppet master who is like thinking like 15 moves ahead and like
Being friends with Lisa Vanderpump is like being friends with Bobby Fischer.
Okay.
Every move is very calculated.
Anyways,
So Dumbledore is Lisa Vanderpump is Bobby Fischer.
apparently.
Okay, cool. Just checking.
And then there's also this like huge like tragic story that Dumbledore has that you never fully can appreciate, because again, like it's so far like when we
far
meet
in the
Dumbledore,
past,
it's
yeah.
so far in the past and like presumably not relevant to the story, but it's so relevant to the
Yeah.
story because it defines him and how he views the world. So I
And
think it's interesting.
The other thing too is that like he doesn't let the grief or the sadness weigh him down. Like you would never know that present day
He's only had
Dumbledore.
100 years to process it.
Well, yeah, but no therapists. I guess time
maybe
is the
there-
best therapist.
Maybe there are therapists, just not in Hogwarts.
Madame Pomfrey. She's got enough on her plate. But my point is that like he doesn't wallow in the grief the same way Snape does. You know, like Snape never gets over it. He's also had a long time. 15 years.
Not
Not
100 years.
Okay, fine. But my point stands is that like despite all the tragedy in Dumbledore's life, he doesn't use it as an excuse.
You mean he doesn't take his anger out on students?
No, he doesn't. He's a good teacher, not a bad teacher. But he doesn't let it stop him from seeing the whimsy in the world and like making jokes or like bugging people about their drinks or whatever, right? Like I think because of all the tragedy, he is more he has more perspective about the joys and like the beyond the conventional magic in a way that Voldemort never does.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, a very flawed character, but a very fun one.
Yeah.
That's it for this week's episode of the Witch Weekly editorial. Thanks for spending time with us, and we'll be back soon with more insights from the wondrous world of Harry Potter.
Keep twiddling those dials. See you next time.